Thank you for tuning in to The Balancing Fact. I'm Angela Calais. I have been a full-time realtor for the past 15 years. With 3 kids running a real estate brokerage, I work to dispel the myth that you cannot have a work-life balance when working in real estate. That balance looks different for everybody. Today, my first guest is Marla Breen. Marla is a realtor with Keller Williams, and I can't wait to dive into what that balance looks like for Marla. Okay, hi Marla.
Hi, Angela.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So today is actually St. Patrick's Day. So I am wearing my green hoodie that I got when we were in Boston for National Convention.
Fun. Back when we traveled.
Yeah.
I think that was the last time we traveled.
I think so too. Yeah, but it was a good time.
Yeah.
So, so one of the reasons I wanted to have you as my first guest, 1, you're my friend. 2, you were willing. And 3, you're a successful realtor, a successful mom. You had a surprise baby, and you kind of had to figure out how that was going to look and make it work. So that's really what I think a lot of moms and realtors, even without kids, are just trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? And I think you might agree that it looks different for everybody, but there is a way to balance it, and you just have to figure out what that is like for you. So tell me a little bit. So you had kids.
You paused on me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So you had 2 kids already.
Yeah. So I started in real estate when my second child was about 2.5. And the intention at that point was, I know that this industry takes a little bit of time to get the ball rolling. So with him being 2, I had 2 years of kind of figuring out that balance and juggle with him at home, but I had anticipated those being, growth years, trying to, like I said, get that ball rolling. And then by the time he was in school full time at 5 years old, I was entering my 3rd year of business, and things were really picking up. So it was really perfectly timed. I was finally starting to feel I had success coming. I wasn't always concerned or worried about where my next lead was going to come from. So the business had started, just moving. It started growing, and I started creating a good referral network. I felt like I finally had the ground beneath me, and surprise, I was having another baby. And it was definitely a moment of panic. I didn't tell people right away. I was personally upset. I was, finally, like I said, felt like everything I had planned and envisioned was happening and panning out the way I wanted it to. And I knew that this was going to be a huge curve. I knew the dedication that real estate took. And I also knew what raising a newborn baby was like, and the challenges and the changes that came with that in your life. So it was definitely a moment of panic, but I also felt I was at a point in my career that I understood what the priorities were that I needed to get in line.
Mm-hmm.
The systems I needed to focus on and get in place. And the best part about having a baby is it takes 9 months for them to show up. So I had 9 months, to really focus and dedicate myself to making sure I had systems in place. I had support around me, and I had a plan for what was going to happen when that baby arrived.
Yeah. So what was your priority? So I imagine, like, when you first decided to go into real estate, you probably had some type of idea of what that might look like. So maybe flexibility of schedule. Tell me, like, how you initially envisioned what your life was going to look like with kids and a job in real estate.
Yeah. So getting started in real estate, business at first is definitely buyer heavy. So I knew that longevity of success as a mom in this industry I needed to focus on listings. I just feel listings allow you to have a lot more control of your time and your schedule. There's a lot of paperwork and phone calls and things that can happen during the daytime. Whereas when you're working with buyers, it does tend to be a lot of nights and weekends when other people have availability to get in homes outside of work hours. It's not just simple phone calls and emails back and forth. It is physically traveling and getting to properties. So from the beginning, focusing on listings was always a priority. So I had control of my schedule, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy to have the experience to get those listings right away. So I am very fortunate that I, going into real estate, had a great support network around me. I live very close to both my parents and my in-laws. So I have people kind of at my disposal. And my kids were young, so I didn't have to pay for childcare during the day because I didn't have a ton of things going on during the work week. So that expense and pressure and commitment was definitely on the lower side starting. But like you said, you definitely envision it being, I can make my own schedule. I can set my own hours. I'm going to set boundaries. And then a listing comes on the market and a buyer needs to get in and they don't have availability on Saturday. So you have to go Friday night, even though you have other.
And it's hard enough when you don't even have kids to try to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Who do you think is your biggest support system? Would it be Jeremy, your husband, or?
So Jeremy is definitely my biggest support system when it comes to making it all work. But he is not my biggest support system when it comes to taking care of the kids when I am not working. He does help with our family store, which is retail hours. So sometimes it's long nights and it is weekends that he is busy and has commitments as well. So my mother-in-law has actually definitely been my biggest, leaning partner. I lean on her a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're so close. So that's definitely helpful.
Definitely. I don't know that I could have grown and found the success I had without her around.
Yeah. Yeah. That's odd. I think sometimes there's almost like a pride part of it. I know, like I've heard from other people, like, well, I don't want to rely on somebody else, or I don't want them to feel like I need them in order to just do my job and that kind of thing. But I think if somebody's happy to help you and they want to help you and they love your kids, why not? Like that, what a benefit to them that they'll have those memories looking back with grandma while mom was at work. And
it's definitely a hard balance. Like you said, the pride piece of it gets to be a lot. It takes something from you when you have to ask constantly. So I did find that when I was first a working mom, I had my mother helping during the days sometimes. My mom also lives nearby. And I did find that it just got to be too much. I preferred to call her for the extra nights and weekends when, like, hey, this came up. Are you available? Versus the like constant, scheduled routine. And I think she enjoys my kids more when it's like a surprise visit here and there. And it can be more the fun pieces rather than being like the daytime nanny. It feels more like a responsibility to parent and take care of the kids versus like nights and weekends where it's fun. It's fun hours. It's outside of that time. It feels like more grandma time, even though it is my working hours. So that is one of the benefits of real estate, that it can be fun hours for whoever's helping with the kids.
Sure.
Because it's the nights and weekends.
So for that reason, did you ever find that you were trying to set up specific times to work nights and weekends just so that you could kind of have that ability with your mom and more like a realistic expectation of what your hours are actually going to be like?
Definitely. I felt earlier in my career, it was easier to, attempt to schedule most of my showings Wednesday, Friday, Saturday was kind of the schedule I had. That was like my tentative wishful thinking hours.
Yeah, right.
As the market changes, it's just gotten harder. Right now we're in a very demanding market. And if a buyer wants to see a house, you need to get in it within 24 to 36 hours, or you don't have time to put together an offer before they're at them.
And sometimes that's not even enough.
And sometimes that's not enough. So right now we're we're at a drop and run. So I've also found that it's important to make friendships and relationships within this network, that I have other realtors that I can also depend on. That if it's a situation that I have a commitment with my kids, whether it's a
Mhm.
softball tournament or a volleyball tournament or a spring concert, that I have an agent that I can rely on. You know, I'm sorry, this time isn't going to
Mhm.
work for me and my commitment, but here is a great partner I've found in this industry that's going to take care of you as if it were
Mhm.
me there. They're going to give
Yeah.
me the feedback, and then we can talk about this once I'm finished with whatever that other commitment is.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I think a lot of people automatically go to family, but you do have to have that realtor support system too. So do you have like a designated person, or did you ever have a buyer's agent or
I have
a
not ever had a
team
buyer's
or
agent.
Mhm.
I did have a girl that I partnered with that, was hopeful that that was the situation, but it just didn't feel consistent enough.
Yeah.
um, because I try to be there. I want to be there for my clients. It's a
Mhm.
really hard piece to actually give up as well. You know, I don't want to give up my time with my kids, but I love and care about my clients. I want to be
Mhm.
there to be able to help them, point out the things that maybe, they're distracted by the pretty kitchen, but they forget that, like, that second bathroom was really important to you guys,
Right.
and this home doesn't have that. Or, hey, this foundation has some issues. We need to make sure that we're
Mhm.
protecting ourselves as we start writing this contract in this market,
Yeah.
because there's some indicators that we need to be, eyes open here. So it's hard to give that up completely. I have found two agents that I rely on very, very much.
Mhm.
So, like I said, especially in this market, one of them is a friend of mine's son who decided to get his real estate license. His mom is also a realtor, so I know he knows and understands the grind of the industry. He knows how important it is, that when I call him, like, hey, this is kind of an emergency, it's not a, well, it would work better
Mhm.
for me if, he understands the demandingness of it, and that he's been an instrumental part of making this year work for me with the three kids.
Yeah. So do you have like a reciprocal relationship, or do you pay them per showing or
So it depends on the client and what I have going on. When
Mhm.
I have an overload of buyers, I will have him commit to one or two of those buyers of, like, hey, these days and weekends, if I need showing help, I'm going to rely on
Mhm.
you. And then it's more of a percentage of the closing.
Nice.
Otherwise, it is like a per showing, per house.
Yeah. You kind of play it by ear and see
Mhm.
what's going
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That helps to have that flexibility too. You had mentioned that you had 9 months to plan when baby Maeve was on her way of how this was now going to look for you. What was the first thing you felt like you had to get in order?
I needed to get templates and systems in order. I was kind of at the point where I was in between just being able to wing it and really needing to make sure I had everything in line. So that was
Mhm.
my number one thing. I created a checklist, a list of all the people that needed to be included in every step of the way, and kind of, orders of operations, a system that my
Mhm.
CRM sent me updates. So I
Okay.
wasn't missing things and things weren't falling through the cracks. And I had a place to go that I could remember, did I do this? Oh, yeah, I did. I already sent that paperwork. I don't need to have the 3 a.m. Oh my gosh, did that get
Yeah, the
taken care of?
panic wake. Yeah. I think we've all been there. For
Especially in this
sure.
industry, it's just
Yeah.
that panic of, oh my God, did I miss a deadline or something? So,
Yeah.
um, getting those systems in place was definitely the number one thing I needed to do
Mhm.
to make sure I felt
Mhm.
prepared for what was to come.
Yeah. So is there a certain CRM that you rely on? You're with Keller Williams, so I don't if it's in company or out or a third party.
Yeah, so I was using Realtor Juggler at the time, and as I got pregnant with Maeve, um, my company moved over to KW Command, and so I did fully integrate into KW Command, and they do offer a great CRM that has amazing reminders and feedbacks, and I definitely appreciate how simple it is and that it integrates with all my other paperwork that I have to do.
Yeah.
That was very helpful.
Is there anything else you integrate into systems just to kind of keep I don't know, like a a pattern or like cohesion with things like a specific title company or specific home inspectors you refer to, like any type of go-to, how it's going to come out on the other side, so it gives you peace of mind.
I do. The other thing I set up during that 9 months was templates for all of the regular emails I was sending. And one of that is like a congratulations this is this is your accepted offer. This is the property date, the property address, the date that we accepted a contract. These are all the important deadlines and dates we have to come. Here are the next steps. And in that template, I do have 3 inspectors that I recommend. If a buyer has an inspector they want to use, they're welcome to, but it's already in my template that automatically gets sent to them of 3 inspectors that I've worked with several times over the last 6 years. I know them, I like them, I trust the advice and the opinions of their reports. So that's always helpful. And then we do have an in-house title company here. And that at that time I was using title reps through partnerships that we had with Women's Council up until that point. And it just became simplified to pull that into my office. They have more access to my files. They're right here whenever I'm in my office to drop off paperwork, for scheduling closings, things like that. So that was a piece of simplifying my life that just made everything a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, for sure. Just having like that, like you said, not just a system, but almost like a pattern. Like you know how things are going to turn out, and you have easy access to people. So you made mention or just briefly brought up Women's Council. So Women's Council of Realtors, I feel like anybody who is going to listen to this is going to be a realtor, and they may or may not be aware, but having a network, I feel like has been a support system for me too. And is that how we met?
That is.
Was that okay? I wasn't sure. I thought so, but now it's been so long that I just don't even realize if that was actually it. But that's definitely where we spent the most time together.
Yeah, and I definitely also, as like a mom coming into real estate and a new agent coming into real estate, I found a lot of support in Women's Council. I felt like when I first came into this industry, it's kind of imposter syndrome. You don't really know what you're doing. Right. You don't know. Every transaction is different. I'd ask questions my first year, and every answer I got was like, well, it depends. Well, it could be different. Yeah. And I was so frustrated with that answer. And as I've been working in the industry, I get it now. Right. It wasn't their fault. I was naive by being frustrated with that being the constant answer. But being at Women's Council, it wasn't maybe a situation I had on my plate, but you would hear other people, having a conversation of, hey, this came up. Have you heard of this? Who have you used? How did you handle it? What was the process you used? What systems do you use? What CRM do you use? Do you buy leads? What lead generation program do you use? So these were just, it was exposure to so many things in the industry that I think it would have taken me a lot longer to know and understand and get a grasp of if I wouldn't have shown up and just kind of submerged myself in the Women's Council of Realtors.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of realtors who have young kids find it hard to justify taking the time to go to those types of events or get-togethers or meeting and networking with other agents. They feel like, well, if I'm going to be taking time away from my kids, I should be out showing a house or getting a listing or doing something like that. And I think they devalue what that type of influence can have on their business. But I think it's so instrumental. And if it's not Women's Council, it should be, something else in your community, or even if it's PTA, like if you want to bring it back to your kids, like that's still just a great opportunity to be around similar people with similar aspects and taking that time. And it's not just time to learn about the business, but it's time to just be around people who also want to elevate their education
I agree. I think one of the most important parts of finding the balance is being really clear on what your priorities are.
Yeah.
And yes, my children are definitely a higher priority in my life than my business 100% of the time. Yep. As it should be. But that doesn't mean I don't put value on myself and my personal growth and my personal fulfillment. So, I actually, when I first started in real estate, considered going to Women's Council as like my self-care time. That was something I did for me. I created relationships with other women in this network or in this industry, and I was growing within this. So that was really, I kind of have a goal for things that I want to do for myself. And at the beginning of my career, being a part of Women's Council was something I was doing for myself. I didn't always tie that to time for my business. I tied it to time for myself and what I needed to to do better
Sure.
in this industry and to learn about it and to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But and I think it works out on both ends. Yeah. Or business and personal, it has equal benefits, but it's important to take that time and not feel like you're somehow trading one over the other. I mean, it's so important.
Definitely.
Yeah. So something else, that I was thinking of, because I had you kind of fill out a questionnaire before before our talk today. Even though I know a lot about you and we've spent a lot of time together, there's always things that you're not really sure of, or that maybe just never came up. But you had an interesting uh, story to share, I guess, in regards to maybe another demanding realtor on time that really shouldn't have been being spent on real estate.
Yeah, and when you get started in this industry, you feel grateful to have business. And I was fortunate to have amazing business at my disposal from an early start. And I had a great listing. And this wasn't just one, there are probably several, and you probably have them too, of times when business interferes with personal life. But
Right.
one year I had a beautiful new construction home that I had listed. It had been on the market for a couple of months, and we were approaching the winter months, where we were talking about taking some price reductions, things like that. I had a buyer that was interested, but we were kind of far apart. And this was new construction. Builders have an expense. They're very much. It's not as emotional when homeowners are selling their home. It's a little bit more emotional. So there's a little bit more conversation around where the price is and where we're going to sell. When it comes to builders, there's a spreadsheet. They look at the numbers and they're like, no, this is the very bottom that we are willing to accept. Otherwise, we're just going to hold it. It's a model home for them. They have, a lot of different uses for this. They're not getting rid of it unless it's going to meet that bottom dollar for them. So I had an agent I was working with. We were kind of going back and forth, and I just kind of finally had to explain that to her. Hey, listen, this is the number, and this is what we're going to walk away at. And she called my phone, and this had been leading up to Christmas. So, these are already kind of stressful days. It was like a weekend, and Christmas Eve was on a Monday. So it had been all weekend of, kids are start a break. We're getting ready for Christmas, which is typically kind of a slower time of year anyway. You're, already putting and blocking off Christmas things. That weekend we had other family Christmases, not just Christmas Day and Christmas Eve things. Christmas Eve, she called my phone literally every 30 minutes the whole day. And it didn't matter what message I sent back to her. I was like, cooking food for dinner for that night and getting my kids ready to go to Christmas Eve mass. And she just kept calling me. And finally I had to call her. I finally answered, like, as we're walking out the door for church, and said, I am turning my phone off for the day. It is Christmas Eve. I appreciate your dedication to, your commitment.
That's a good way to
your
phrase
commitment
it. Yeah.
to this transaction, but we are not going to get this solved. And my seller is not going to be accommodating to working today. Christmas and Christmas Eve are family days. Please take some time with your family and we can resume this on Wednesday. And she was not very thrilled with me. And she kept telling me, oh, but it would be a Christmas miracle. I'm like, it would be a Christmas miracle if I didn't have to work. If I didn't have to work today and I could just focus on what matters. It's not just a random day. It was Christmas Eve. And it was like 5:30 on Christmas Eve. It wasn't like 9:00 in the morning. It was like, lady. And it's just very frustrating that there aren't boundaries in this industry. And you have to really protect them yourself. You have to know your boundaries. You have to set them and you have to stick to them. Other people don't care. Other people don't have the same boundaries as you do. And that's okay. I get it. Not everybody has the same commitments or boundaries that I do, but we do need to respect each other's boundaries.
Yeah. Do you think moving forward, there'd be anything you would do differently to maybe avoid getting that call, or is this just a rogue agent who just doesn't matter?
I do think this was a rogue agent. I have attempted to put some things in place. I'm always very envious. You are very good at it, at putting those boundaries out there and just kind of setting the tone for it. I just feel some days it's easier than others. I don't always have set working hours. There are some days that I am with my kids and I kind of more take care of things during naps and breaks and when when it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a hard time saying, I will be answering phone calls today at 4:30 or, from
Sure.
11 to 1 or whatever the time is. So I've shied away from putting those strict boundaries in line. I think
Sure.
that once Maeve is in school again, I do want to move to more of that. Like I said, it's something I've been very envious of you since I met you, that you are so good at it, at setting those boundaries ahead of you set up the expectations ahead of time for both your clients and other agents, and they know how you work. And that's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Yeah. But it's different for everybody. And there's certainly times they had a listing over the weekend, get 25 offers. And that's a situation where I'm at my son's basketball tournament and borrowing another mom who is a realtor, borrowing her laptop at the tournament to quick send out a notification through showing time when I'm presenting, just because the calls and the texts were constant. And again, like, I appreciate their dedication to like wanting this information, some of which was already available on MLS. Like, they could have just read and gotten that. And I appreciate that it's a competitive market and you want to do whatever you can to get in front of the sellers in the best light. But there came a time where I'm like, I gotta turn this off and I just gotta send out this notification so everybody just gets the same information. And just like this is my son's last 8th grade basketball game. And I stopped bringing my computer with me years ago because it was too attractive to be like, I could quick do this. And then it just came there like, Nicole, can I just use your laptop real quick? And then I felt better. Better that it was out there and I could just kind of, relax. And
Yeah, and it changes. This demanding market does make it more difficult to completely turn it off. There are times, like you said, that you have to find a way to balance the commitment you made to your clients and your personal commitments. And it is difficult and it can be intrusive. But like you said, once you get it out there, then you can kind of block it off until you're finished with your commitment.
Yeah. And usually it would be something where I'd be like, okay, as soon as this is done, I will respond to everybody. But there was so much. I knew if I put it off, I wouldn't just have 20 text messages, I'd have 50. So it was part of me just trying to keep up so that I wouldn't be up till 11 o'clock at night or something. Because I go to bed early. I've got an early morning routine, and like, I'm very strict about getting to bed on time. So that was important to me to just like, I want to be present at this tournament, but I also know that I need to be there for my kids in the morning. So I have to get to bed tonight too. So I just kind of got to get done what I can when I can. But I think you have a routine in the morning too, or things you like to do. You get up a little bit earlier than the kids.
Yeah, I am not a great morning person. I used to like to be, but COVID life completely threw that out the window. It just has been a challenge getting back to structure and routine with the way the last year has gone. But I have found that if I put too much pressure on it, I used to say I have a 120-minute process in the morning, like from the time I get up until the kids are out the door. And there were things I would try to get done, in the morning in between it. And I just found it was too much. It was too much pressure on like every single minute. And once I didn't do it one day, I felt like I was beating myself up for several days. So I decided I needed to simplify it. I needed to do something that was going to make me feel good about getting up and getting moving in the morning. So waking up before the kids are out of bed is like key to happiness in my day. I just need at least 10 minutes of peace and quiet. Start the coffee, have a glass of water, and like no sound. Kids are just chaos and sound in the morning. But I try to wake up that I have 30 minutes to do something. And I kind of try to schedule it that I mix it up between the days. I have like a 30-minute workout routine that I'll sometimes do, or I do like 10 minutes of meditating and 20 minutes of journaling or
Mm.
affirmations or even just stretching and meditating. And, depending on how my week is going and what I need, I kind of,
Mhm.
maybe I do more meditating or maybe I do more of a workout because I need to get some frustration out in the morning.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on what I need, but I kind of have a list of a few
Yes.
items that I make sure I do one of those things for 30 minutes in the morning. And then my kids, I start waking them up. And then it's kind of on to family life until they're out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have your phone off and out of the room when you're getting the kids out the door and getting them ready and
I have put a do not disturb on my phone
Mhm.
from 11 p.m. until 8 in the morning.
Nice.
So I can look at it if I have time or if I'm waiting on something, but my phone does not ding, beep, send off notifications or phone calls during that time.
I love that.
Yeah, because it's distracting and
Mhm.
it makes you flustered. And I'm not going to take care of it before 8 in the morning anyway. I can't call a
Right.
title company, can't call a lender. I shouldn't be
Well,
calling,
and
I
then
don't want
you're
to wait phone next.
distracted. And
Exactly.
you're thinking in the back of your head these things, and I think the kids pick up on that too. Like she's not fully present. She's
Yeah.
thinking about this other thing that has to get done. So,
Especially if it's something that's like, you know, upsetting or frustrating, they
mhm.
feel those emotions. And I feel when I see those things, I get,
Yes.
more snippy with my kids. I'm more likely to just go. Here's a
Yeah,
snack, like
for
move on. I don't
sure.
care.
Yeah, if you're getting that call from that agent, like, just respond to me, and
Exactly.
then you're going to turn around and that's the mentality or that's the mental like energy that you're going to have. And not purposely, of course. I just think that's human nature and that's the way it goes. But you're smart enough to recognize that and try to eliminate that from
Exactly.
happening.
I also had a buyer who wakes up extremely early and she would check her emails at like 4 o'clock in the morning and send me like, hey, I like this house. Hey, what about this? Or like questions about things. And my phone was like binging at 4 in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? And that was when I was like, no, this has to
Yeah.
be off, not disturbing me in my sleep
Hmm.
because I need my sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you wonder, like, is it an emergency? It's typically not.
It's
I mean,
typically not.
it's not an emergency. No.
But it's also worked out great because now I tell my clients that of like, hey, listen, if it's past a certain time or before a certain time, my phone is on silent. So feel free to call or to text or email me when you have a question or when it comes to your mind, because you're not going to bother me. It's not going to
Hmm.
wake me up. But as soon
There
as
you
I do
go.
see it, I will be able to take care of it. So that way it's in my inbox and it's the first thing I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, that's the definite positive thing. Yeah, like I'm not saying you can't call me and call me whenever you want. And I've done that before too. Like, yeah, you can send me an offer with, a 10 p.m. deadline. I'm in bed at 9, so that's up to you.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not going to get it till morning, but sure. Um, anything you do at night to kind of prepare for the next day?
I do, as soon as the kids go to bed, I take at least 15 minutes to pick up my house, make sure
Mhm.
everything's set and ready. I have a Roomba, which is my favorite part of make sure that everything's picked up off the ground because that thing's going to eat it or get stuck if
Yeah,
everything's not off the ground. And that way it runs. I have it set to run at like midnight every night. So my house is like swept and vacuumed and cleaned every morning.
that's
We have a
amazing.
dog.
I
There's dog
forget the
hair.
Roombas have those settings. I have never set up the settings on my Roomba. I just hit the button and it goes all over the place. Like there is no rhyme or reason to this Roomba.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, so
yeah,
I get everything set and ready. And then I usually make sure I have like my water bottle and my things set up for the morning, just so that
yeah.
it's a little bit easier. Because, like I said, I'm not much of a morning person. I tend to move a little bit slow. I usually at night
Mhm.
try to pick out what it is I want to be doing the next morning because it kind of depends, the way you feel at night.
Yeah.
It just helps set you up for success. If I'm going to wake up and have a slow day tomorrow, I'm going to have the coffee maker set and
Yeah.
I'm just going to read a book or I'm just going to journal for a little bit or,
Hmm. I
whichever.
like that you take it as it comes based on the day because I feel like, and I'm totally guilty of this too, where because we are such detail oriented, like perfectionist control type people in a very good way, in a very necessary way. But because of that, sometimes we can kind of go a step too far. So like I used to have a morning routine where it was like, okay, I'm getting up at 4:30, from 4:30 to 4:45, I'm brushing my teeth and changing into my workout clothes from 4:45 to 5 o'clock. I'm doing this. And it was just too much. And then because I'm such a perfectionist, if I didn't stick to that specific schedule, then it just went against my whole purpose of having that routine because then I was so hard on myself for not fulfilling that ridiculously unachievable strict schedule for myself. So now it's more, at night, think about, okay, this is what I want my workout to look like tomorrow. And so I need about this much time. And then I'll set my alarm the night before. And it's usually around the same time. And my body knows now. So like if I don't set my alarm, I tend to just get up at that time anyway. But if you set it too strict, then you're just going to beat yourself up for not being able to do it. Like we need one more thing to be hard on ourselves about.
Exactly. And that I've found is like accepting that and being really honest with myself about that is where I feel better about my business and my family life and that work-life balance that you're trying to achieve when you're like, I can only do my best. I'm going to do my best and show up and be present for the things that I care about. And hopefully I get, if I'm mindful of the things that I want, they'll get done and taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you've really figured out a good way to do that. If you think you had to add one more thing in, and I don't want to say add one more thing because that seems almost like a burden, but if there was something that you thought you wanted to integrate into like a daily routine or your business that you think would even give you a better, I don't want to say handle because you got it down. You're not handling things. But if there was anything that you think you could integrate that would just make things even better, like what do you think that might look like? Do you think you'd add an assistant? Do you think you'd get like a specific buyer's agent type thing? Or I don't know. I have 2 phones and I think you tried that once and it wasn't for you.
No, I tried the 2 phone thing. I went to a Google Voice line, which I like because I can turn it off. And then it also sends me text messages and transcripts of my voice messages get put to my email account. So if I need to forward them to people or like my husband or whoever, I can just hit forward and it goes to somebody.
Cool.
And then also if I'm on vacation or gone for a weekend or busy for a day, I can actually give that line to somebody else that it'll ring on their phone, even though they call my phone number. Or I can just have it turned off, that it just automatically goes straight to voicemail, and then I get emails about whatever's going on. So I found that was a better balance for me. I just felt like the 2 phones was like 2 things I was checking. Like it's enough. I'm in my phone looking at it all the time anyways. That 2 was like twice as much. I was opening them both and like clicking 2 screens to see what was going on. And it was just too much for me. I'm not sure that there's something in particular I feel I need to add. I've decided that this year is a year for wellness. This year started, and this market is really insane. It's defeating it. It's beating up myself and my buyers. And so I've just kind of had this mental shift of, you know what? Not every year is like striking gold in real estate. So I'm going to take it as I need to focus on myself, health, wellness, filling those other things that I've probably been lacking in a little bit, especially with this last year being this whole COVID year. I just felt like my personal time was really eaten by my kids. It's not just work and my family, it's also yourself, like taking care of yourself. And that self part this last year was definitely depleted out of necessity. It was definitely like a, fight or flight and
you get into that survival mode.
Yeah, survival mode. So I just kind of made some dedications to myself of different health things I wanted to start taking care of and routines I wanted, appointments and things I wanted to start taking care of for myself. And once I stopped putting the stress on being productive in real estate, it has all just kind of fallen into place. It felt like I needed to pull back and worry and care about myself, that like these other things are just starting to work and fall into place. And I feel, grateful that I have the luxury of being able to say that this year. I know not everybody is like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take a break. And maybe if I don't make money like I did the last couple of years, that's okay. I can deal with it. And I feel like I'm in a place that I could do that.
Yeah.
And it's helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have loved our conversation, and I'm so glad that you agreed to be my first guest. There's so much that I think realtor moms can learn from you. And I mentioned that questionnaire. Yes. So my last question was, what is a balancing fact that you can share? And you had indicated striving for perfection might be a detriment to getting that balance.
Yes, done is better than perfect. I remember a time when I would sit and like be nervous about what I was emailing to people. And you're like, no, I have 3 minutes to get this email sent out so I can get back to my life. Get
Just
it
get it
out.
done.
Like, don't worry about it. Again, if you're doing your best, put your best foot forward. I'm doing what I can, but it needs to get out the door. And I feel that way with every piece. And it's still a work in progress. And I think this whole balance thing is, like things change, and it changes where your focus is and what you need to worry about. But like, even packing my kids' lunches, I'm like, do I need to cut it into hearts and flowers and use my stampers?
Right.
No, chop up the vegetables and get them in a bag. They just need food
Hey,
today.
you got vegetables in there. So that is already like one above where I am.
Exactly.
There's never vegetables in my kids' lunch. So
exactly. So like I said, done is better than perfect, and progress always wins.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration. I truly appreciate you taking the time away from your business and your kids and life and everything just to talk to me. So it's always appreciated.
Yes, I love it. Thank you again. I appreciate it. It's a privilege being the first. So thank you.
Thank you. And happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Bye.
Bye.